What's up? Pack and Trash MTG here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Planechase, the set from 2009 that hasn't seen any kind of printing since 2016. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not be, but there are new Planechase cards coming with the Commander decks with March of the Machine here in 2023. So wanted to take some time, talk through it, and really specifically focus on the new cards that are coming through. Like I mentioned, it hasn't really been printed since the Planechase Anthology in 2016, so that's been about 7 years now, which, by the way, is selling for like $400 on TCG Player. I looked that up, and it's gone up almost $100 this year, which is pretty wild. Quickly, for those of you who don't know what Planechase is, here's some of the rules. So basically, each deck has at least 10 Planechase or Phenomenon cards that exist kind of in like the command zone. It's a singleton thing, so no duplicates of any planes, and no more than 2 Phenomenons in the planar deck. The starting player, if it's your turn, you flip the top card of your planar deck, and that's the plane that we're on. The face-up card is the only active planar card. When the turn passes to the next player, they actually gain control of the planar card and are now the plane controller. Anytime you could cast a sorcery, you can roll a planar die, which is a 6-sided die. It's got 4 blank sides, 1 planeswalker symbol side, and 1 chaos symbol side. So you roll the die. If you land on the planeswalker symbol, then you planeswalk. We'll talk about what that is. And if you land on chaos, then you basically the chaos clause on the plane you're on takes place, or whenever chaos ensues. The rolls cost equal mana to the number of rolls that have been done this turn. So your first roll is free, but your second roll costs 1 because you've rolled once already. Your third roll costs 2 because you've rolled twice already, so on and so forth. If you planeswalk, then you put the active card on the bottom of its owner's planar deck, and you flip the top planar card from your deck, and that becomes the new plane that we're on. So that's basically the gist of it. Alternate version is to play basically with all of the planes and all the Phenomenons just in one stack in the middle. It's everything in there, randomized, and that can add a lot of variety to games that are maybe getting repetitive. Probably worthwhile noting you can add this element of play to pretty much every version or every format of Magic the Gathering, whether it's Commander, whether it's Modern or Standard or Pauper or whatever you're playing. I do personally think that it's the most fun in a 4-player game, but you can definitely do it one-on-one as well. So let's get into just talking about what the new planes are here in 2023 for March of the Machine coming in the Commander decks. The Commander decks come with the 10 planar cards for a planar for a planar deck, like we just talked about up there. 4 of the cards are reprinted planes. 1 of the cards is a reprinted Phenomenon, and then 5 of the cards are brand new planes printed here in 2023 for these March of the Machines Commander decks. So it's pretty cool to see them bringing this back. I think it's a format that is pretty fun and can add a level of randomness, fun. I think it helps to make games a little bit more casual as well, because they aren't as planned out. One of the reasons that Commander is fun is because the experience is different each time you play the Commander deck, whereas something like Modern, the decks are really designed to do the same thing every single game as reliably as possible. So in the description, I'll have all of the new cards that are printed here for 2023. I was struggling to find that online, so if you're like me and you want to get all of the new Planechase cards, you can order them as singles online. So the list will be in the description. So to get started, we have Enigma Ridges. Basically, when you planeswalk to Enigma Ridges, every player who controls fewer lands than the person who controls the most lands, search your library for any number of basic lands equal to the difference, and then you put them into your hand, and then you shuffle. Whenever chaos ensues, draw a card, and you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So a little bit of ramp there. Esper is artifact spells cost 1 less to cast. Whenever chaos ensues, creatures you control that are white, blue, or black become artifacts in addition to their other types until the end of the turn. And then each artifact creature you control gains vigilance, menace, and lifelink until the end of the turn. Woof. So if you're playing Esper colors, or any version of that, or artifacts, this can be a game-ending plane in some regards, especially if you roll the chaos. I'm going to butcher a lot of these names as well, but here we have Girapur. I'm going to take my best shot at it. It's on Kaladesh. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each non-creature, non-vehicle artifact you control becomes a 5/3 vehicle in addition to its other types. It gains trample, haste, and crew 2. Whenever chaos ensues, return target creature, artifact, non-creature artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can kind of get some recursion there for non-creature artifact cards. Speaking of cards I won't be able to pronounce, here's Inez Hayan. When you planeswalk here and at the beginning of your upkeep, you mill 3 cards, and whenever you planeswalk away from here, each player returns all lands from their graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so everyone's going to get a big influx of mana here. Whenever chaos ensues, return target non-land card from your graveyard to your hand, so you can get back some of those things that either were in there or that you've milled. Here's Ketria. It's on Ikoria, so when you planeswalk to Ketria and at the beginning of your upkeep, put your choice of a Vigilance, Menace, or Trample counter on target creature you control, and whenever chaos ensues, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card, put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. Then we have Littjara. This is in Kaldheim. When you planeswalk to Littjara and at the beginning of your upkeep, you get a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling, and whenever chaos ensues, choose a creature type, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control of that type. So great for any kind of tribal decks you're running. Megaflora Jungle. Each creature with mana value 2 or less gets +2/+2, so buffing the little guys. And whenever chaos ensues, create a 1/1 green insect creature token with flying named Butterfly. So that's fun. Noctamon, I'm not sure. It's on Amonkhet, which is a reason I probably can't pronounce it. But each creature card in your graveyard has Embalm, and its Embalm cost is equal to its mana cost. So that's pretty cool. And whenever chaos ensues, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So the next one we have is New Argive. I'm not really sure. It's on Dominaria. Whenever a historic creature you control attacks, let me rephrase that. Not cast, when it attacks, it gets +2/+2 to the end of the turn. Obviously, the historic creatures are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. Those are your historic spells. Whenever chaos ensues, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a historic card. Put that card into your hand, the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Here we have Norn Seedcore. It's on New Phyrexia. When you planeswalk to Norn Seedcore, chaos ensues. So just right away. And whenever chaos ensues, reveal cards from the top of your planar deck until you reveal a plane card, planeswalk to it, except don't planeswalk away from any plane. Put the rest of the reveal cards on the bottom of your planar deck in any order. I think this basically just means that you go to that plane. I'm not sure what it means by not planeswalking away. If that means you have both of these out at the same time, I'm not really sure. If anyone's got any good ideas around how Norn Seedcore actually works, please put it in the comments. Nyx, so obviously this is on Theros. Non-token creatures are enchantments in addition to their other types. We also get some Constellation here, so whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever chaos ensues, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So Theros playing doing Theros things. Then we have Paliano. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, if there is no monarch, you become the monarch. Whenever chaos ensues, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with death touch and haste. We have Riptide Island. This is on Dominaria. Whenever you planeswalk to Riptide Island and at the beginning of your upkeep, create 2 1/1 colorless sliver creature tokens. Whenever chaos ensues, slivers you control gain haste and get +X/+X to the end of the turn, where X is the number of slivers you control. So obviously, if you're building a planar deck for a sliver deck, this is an auto include. Pretty awesome. Strixhaven. Here we have instant and sorcery spells players cast have demonstrate. So basically, when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can copy it. If you do, an opponent also gets to copy it. You choose an opponent to copy it, and players may choose new targets for their copies. So notably, this one is not just strictly the planar controller at the time. It's all players, so it's a board-wide effect there that way. And whenever chaos ensues, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. Ten Wizards Mountain. Whenever you roll the planar die, put a 1/1 counter on up to one target creature. Whenever chaos ensues, creatures you control gain flying until the end of the turn. Kind of cool, a card that incentivizes rolling the planar die more than once a turn. Like we talked about earlier, you can pay mana for additional rolls, so that's kind of fun. And it should be noted there are some plane chase specific cards, that will tap or do something as far as allowing you to roll a planar die additional times. Next we have the Kaldaya. This is on Capenna. Creature spells you cast from your hand have Blitz 3. So basically, you cast a spell for its Blitz cost. It gains haste, and whenever it dies, draw a card, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. And then whenever chaos ensues, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We have the Fertile Lands of Solvinia. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produced, so doubles your mana from your lands. Whenever chaos ensues, reveal cards from the top of your planar deck until you reveal a new plane, or until you reveal a plane card, basically. Chaos ensues on that plane, and then you put all the revealed cards on the bottom of your planar deck in any order. Next up, we have the Golden City of Orazca. This is on Ixalan, Ascent. So if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, then draw a card if you have the city's blessing. Whenever chaos ensues, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So that's pretty cool. Next, we have the Grey Aerie. This is on Tarkir. Whenever you planeswalk to the Grey Aerie and at the beginning of your upkeep, bolster 3. So basically, a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control, get 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever chaos ensues, choose up to 1 target creature you control and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its toughness to the other. Next up, we have a pretty cool one. I think this one was pretty awesome. It's the Pit. This is in the plane of the Abyss. So think about creatures or demons specifically like Lord of the Pit. Kind of cool throwback. Anyways, so when you planeswalk to the Pit, each player creates their choice of a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying or a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying and trample, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice another creature. If you can't, this creature deals 6 damage to you. Whenever chaos ensues, each player sacrifices a non-artifact creature. Kind of a cool plane to be on. Speaking of cool planes, this one's called the Western Cloud. So prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to creatures and planeswalkers you control. So again, this is whoever the planar controller is, whoever's turn it is, their creatures and planeswalkers cannot receive damage. And whenever chaos ensues, create 3 tapped treasure tokens. They each deal 1 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. So obviously your creatures will not be affected by this, but everything else, every other planeswalker, every other creature gets 3 damage from these treasures that come in tapped. The next one is called the Wilds. This is on Eldraine. When you planeswalk to the Wilds and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a food token. Whenever chaos ensues, target player sacrifices a creature. If they do, you create a food token. You create 2 food tokens instead if the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater. Next up, we have Tawashi. This is on Kamigawa. Modified creatures you control have trample. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card. Whenever chaos ensues, distribute 3 1/1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. Then we have Unyaro. At the beginning of your end step, if you planeswalk to Unyaro this turn, untap all creatures. They phase out until the player planeswalks. Treat them and anything attached to them as though they didn't exist. This one's kind of interesting because I don't know, at the beginning of your end step, if you planeswalked to this turn, untap all creatures and then they phase out. So your creatures are gone, but you're still there, right? Like, aren't you just now open for business? I'm not really sure. But whenever chaos ensues, create 2/2 white and blue night creature tokens with vigilance. The last one that's new with the 2023 Commander decks here for March of the Machine is Valor's Reach. Whenever your team attacks with exactly 2 creatures, those creatures gain double strike until the end of the turn. Whenever chaos ensues, untap up to 2 creatures your team controls. If it's a main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. So that's going to wrap it up as far as all of the new printings of Planechase cards here in 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, leave any comments. Feel free to roast me down there. But thanks for stopping by and have a great day.